A law is going to be submitted in Japan during this parliamentary session that requires all Japanese companies to make sure that their employees take at least 5 vacation days a year. Think Progress reports, quote, "The country guarantees workers at least 10 vacation days a year, but barely half ever get taken. Part of the reason is that workers don't get sick days and have to use vacation days instead, so most people save a few days each year." They say a consensus developed in recent years that Japan's work ethic is hurting people's health and productivity. About 22% of Japanese workers put in more than 49 hours a week, compared to 16% of Americans and 11% of French and Germans. The Japanese have a word for working oneself to death, karoshi, and the government estimates there are 200 such deaths each year. Suicides aren't included in that figure. So this is really interesting. It's the idea of literally mandatory vacation time. Like your bosses walk up to you one day at work and say, "Okay, when are you taking your 10 days off this year?" You don't have a choice not to pick the days. Now, my libertarian side comes out a little bit when I read that, and I think, but if somebody doesn't want to take it, then why would you force them to take it? It seems a little bit too big government-ish to me and a little bit too forceful. Like, what are they going to do if you don't take those days? Throw you in jail? Fine you? It's like, okay, you've gone too far now. In an attempt to be kind and sympathetic and fair, you went a little bit too far in the wrong direction here, and it's a little bit too nanny state-ish for me. But with that being said, I understand the sentiment behind it. I understand the concern about having a population that works insanely hard and gets no time off and how it affects everybody in a negative way. I mean, I was surprised to learn that Americans actually work less than the Japanese. Because from all the other things I've read, it seemed pretty clear to me that Americans are so incredibly overworked, and I thought we worked the most hours out of all the modern nations. It turns out Japan works a little bit more than we do. And it does contribute, man. It contributes to a culture of sickness. It contributes to probably a culture of depression. You have very high rates of people taking antidepressants in America, and in a lot of modern countries, actually, if you really dive into the specifics on it. But it's something that we've geared society to only give a shit about our productivity and our GDP growth and our material well-being. And we've totally gotten away from any remnants of a society that had just a different lifestyle. Like this idea, it's kind of a modern invention. The invention of, well, everybody's life is, well, you wake up, you go to work, you're in a cubicle, you come home. You go to sleep, you wake up, you go to work, you're in a cubicle, you come home. And just repeat that 4,000 times. That wasn't the way it always was. And I think that we kind of get in our own heads here when we don't take a step back, objectively look at it, and realize what it was like throughout a majority of history where, you know, going back to primitive times where we were in little hunter-gatherer tribes, but you don't even need to go all the way that far back. I mean, look at the Native Americans, for example. They had like a very communal society, and it was like, most of your time, you did what you had to do in order to maintain your basic necessities and your well-being, and you had to hunt, and you had to, you know, make fires to build the heat. But other than that, a lot of the time was spent with each other and enjoying each other's company and relaxing, and they would smoke peyote and chill. Like, now when you look at modern societies, especially America and especially apparently Japan, it's just all day long, go, make more money, get more GDP growth, buy a bigger house, get the next car, get this, get that. And there is something that's fairly vapid about that, right? There is something that's fairly soul-sucking about that experience, because it's like you're racing to the finish line of what? Like, what is the finish line? What do you expect is going to be there at the end waiting for you when you're going 3,000 miles an hour in one direction here? I got news for you. We all end up in a grave. So why wouldn't we balance better our social life and our work life, our leisure and our labor? It seems to me that this trend of more work, more economic growth, it can't last forever, because there's something profoundly against our nature in acting that way. And again, when I look at this story here, I think, okay, a little bit too big government-ish to say we're going to force you to take off your 10 days. But what I would want to do instead is, I prefer, like if I was king for a day and I got to craft society from scratch, I would do a 4-day work week. And I would also make it so that people get at the very least, 6 weeks paid vacation by law. And they could choose to take it or not to take it. But I would encourage that this become the norm, that the norm is 4 days a week. If you want to work more, okay, you could work more, but the norm is 4 days a week. The norm is at least 6 weeks paid vacation. The norm is to have a strong social safety net and to give everybody equal opportunity and have universal health care and education and stuff like that. And we're at a point right now where the pendulum has swung so far in the direction of overworking and sucking off capitalism that we've forgotten that it's a good idea to relax and drink some wine and hang out with your friends and take a Xanax and all that stuff. So, interesting story coming out of Japan. I don't agree with the idea of forcing them to do it, but I do agree with the overall goal of trying to get society back to a place where it's not all work all the time and no play and no leisure.